The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Faster Mike, good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. We're open line through till 1. I'm hoping you're going to do most of the talking today. Call 66 13 68, text 166 177, email studio@manxradio.com or WhatsApp 166 177. Haven't been with you for, well, crikey, almost a week now, so tell me what's been going down, what's been happening, what's on your mind. Text, email, call and WhatsApp, particularly if you're in the south, that group of former Castletown politicians saying that you need to support the town's businesses during the festive season. Now that the commissioners are closing Market Square to cars, meaning that traders might struggle, or they say will struggle, during the winter. Any thoughts on this? Text, email, call, WhatsApp. David's first with us today. Hi, David.
Hi, Andy. Just quickly, I want to say, because you never see your milkman, I never see my milkman, so the other day he left a card for us to wish us a Merry Christmas, so I was going to do something nice and say, because I don't know who Tom is, because he delivers the milk, say, between midnight and something or other, and I'm gone to bed by then. So I want to thank Tom, the milkman, who delivers Onken milk from the creamery.
Fantastic.
So that job is done, and maybe sometime in the future, in the new year, Andy, we could do something that's nice as well. Certainly there's certain things we could do, but I want to get back to the housing board and Timold there the other day, and listening to them talking about the housing board, which is this quango that we don't know what it does. Is it accountable? How much money have they already spent, and how much do the directors get? You know, they're not doing it for nothing. I'm sure they're not doing it for nothing. I stand to be corrected. They might be, but I very much doubt it. And how are they accountable? And how are they getting funding, government funding, without even not struggling? Or like local authorities. I'm just speaking on a personal note now as a commissioner on this one is, we're waiting for answers from central government and Treasury, and we can't get them. We want to be part of this housing initiative, and we certainly have plans to do certain things, but do you ever get an answer?
Well, and I think this is where the public will look at this gone out, David. They'll say the government, I mean, first of all, the government's talking about increasing the population. We also have a housing crisis where lots of young couples simply can't get on the ladder. They haven't built any public sector housing for years. So the public will think, well, hang on, isn't this a priority? Why isn't something being done? And as you say, with the Manx Development Corporation, fine bunch of people they may well be, but the trouble is, really, nothing's happened. They haven't finished.
No. Well, nothing at all. And I did see some pictures of the old nurses' home there, but now I am led to believe they're going to be let. So now the government or the housing board becomes a landlord. So doesn't it have to comply with the landlord's legislation like everybody else?
And this is where the public kind of narrow their eyes and think, what's going on here? Who is this actually for? Who is it going to benefit? And the moment you say they're going to be let, David, straight away, what's the term of the tenancy? What's the term of the lease? How long is it going to be? What sort of people can be there? And as on the Isle of Man, unless you tell people chapter and verse, people will come to their own conclusions.
Yeah, and the saddest thing yesterday was listening to them was too, they talked about a little bit about homeless. A couple of members talked about homelessness and people who are sofa surfing and so forth. But there was no policy that came out. Where are we at? I'm still waiting from social services or Manx Care for answers. What's their answer when somebody's in hospital, is ready to be shipped home, and they haven't got a home? So where's the policy? And why I still need to put a data subject access request in to get a policy decision from a government department. Will they have to do the same for the DOI, the new minister? I hope the answer is no, because the policies are there.
And as you say, this just seems to overcomplicate matters. It makes things complicated, which shouldn't be complicated.
Shouldn't be. You shouldn't need. The answer is yes and no on most of the things. You're either going to get it done or you're not. Planning is the same. You go through a procedure there. We've still got next year. We still have some government properties. What we like I say, 2 pubs down the Summerland site, Park Road School, the bus station, and we've got Newsome's on the Quay there, and several other places which are not built, and the other one has been started by the Villiers. Good luck to them. But what about the rest of the island getting their fair share? And how much does it generate to the local industry, like the local builders?
It'll be interesting. Okay, David, appreciate that. Thanks for calling today.
See you, bye.
Cheers now. 13 minutes past 12. Any thoughts on this? Properties proposals look to address housing shortages, empty properties and homelessness. They've got plans, they say, for up to 1,000 affordable homes over the next decade. Tynwald will be debating. A decade's a long time, isn't it? Wilf's with us now. Hi, Wilf.
Hi, Andy. It's good to have you back. I hope you're feeling better.
Better than I was.
Well, yeah. It's just a short one. I was just thinking back. I've been listening to the news and I've been listening to the Mannin Line. I haven't been going on because the last question I asked, and then you asked it and put it out over the air. What do we do with dead electric cars?
I'm trying to find out if there's anybody on the Isle of Man who takes and recycles an electric vehicle. Now, I'm thinking the answer is no. So I just wonder what happens to them then.
Well, they've had over a week now for anybody at all to come back on and tell us what to do with them. They don't know what they're going to do with them. That's why they've never been on. It's as simple as that. The government doesn't know what to do with them, but they keep buying them and forcing local councils like Ramsey commissioners to buy electric vehicles.
So what's going to happen to the ones what's going to happen to the ones that when they're out of service at Ramsey commissioners? What's going to happen to the electric vehicles?
Well, that's it. That's what I wanted to find out. But no one can tell a sensible question. And nobody can give me an answer. As simple as that.
So just tell me, because you're quite experienced in this field then, when a normal car or truck or van is scrapped, what happens then? Who takes the scrap? Who takes the engine? What happens?
Oh, no. When we had what I call proper vehicles, diesel and petrol, when the hierarchy, if you like, my hierarchy, thinks that a diesel, one of our vehicles is looking a bit scruffy, it's got a big mileage on it, what have you, it wants tarting up, so it's put to auction. And It's sold, and sometimes you get a reasonable price for them. Now, these electric ones, you can't do anything with them.
Right.
That's what my thing is. I've never been for electric vehicles. And I don't think I ever will, because they will never take over. I'm pretty sure of that.
Right. So let's go back to what you call normal vehicles then, diesel or petrol. They're sold at auction or what have you. So at the end of their lives, when they're financially no longer any useful and they go to scrap, what happens to the component parts of the vehicle? Who gets what?
Oh, they go to the scrap man. They go for... Normally they go for auction and they're bought to be used again.
Right.
Now, whoever the user is then, whatever he does with it, sells it on or drives it till it is scrap, then it goes to the normal scrap man here on the island. And it's engine taken out, wheels taken off and then crushed.
Right. And then what happens to that vehicle? What happens to the metal?
It goes away and recycled, and we make new ones out of them.
So it goes off the island.
Oh, yes, definitely, yes.
Okay, so at the moment we don't even recycle ordinary cars, so we're nowhere near.
Ordinary cars are recycled.
Yeah, but not on the Isle of Man. They have to go off, don't they?
Well, they're half recycled on the Isle of Man. Any components that's any use are kept here and sold on or whatever. But the bodies are crushed and they into a block, and away it goes to get remelted into whatever.
Yeah. Okay, I understand that. Right, so we're still trying to find out then, the questions going into the distance and echoing, who recycles or how do you recycle a knackered electric vehicle on the Isle of Man? If it's if it's involved in an accident or an incident or something happens where it breaks, then what happens? That's all we want to know, isn't it? What happens then?
That's it, yeah.
Okay. All right, Wilf,
okay.
If anybody knows, put us out of our misery. Thanks, Wilf. Good to hear from you. Text, email, call and WhatsApp. What happens to the electric vehicles when they are broken, finished, no economic value? Where do they go? Does it cost us any money? And who pays? Because obviously, if the batteries are completely, an electric motor is an electric motor. We understand that. You've got the chassis and parts of the body. Most of it's going to be plastic in the future, so that will need to be recycled. But what's going to happen? And recycling an electric vehicle battery is not a straightforward process. Because with a normal internal combustion engine, anything that could blow up has gone. All the fuel has gone. The engine oil, well, possibly could catch fire, but not that often. The petrol will have gone, the diesel will have gone. But when you have an electric vehicle, you've got a battery left, and a big one at that. Here's Betty now. Hello, Betty.
Hi, Andy. Sorry, my throat's gone all funny. I'd just like to give a shout out to yourself and Manx Radio for getting the government and others, and to thank you for getting them to answer the questions that we have.
Oh, right. Any particular question?
No, I was thinking of Wilf's last question, that's all. And then the other questions, you often say you've tried to get the government and others to come in and answer questions, and they haven't, but at least you try.
Okay, well, we'll keep on trying in 2025 as well.
Thank you, Andy.
Good to hear from you. Thanks, Betty. It's 12:20 on Manx Radio. Free parking is at a premium in sleepy Castletown, says Malcolm. Pragmatic Parking, Port Erin. So permanently closing off the prime parking spaces in the market square seems like a silly situation. It must definitely affect the decision of shoppers as to whether to stop and shop or just pass on by. If the square was regularly used for events which attracted visitors, there could be an economic reason for the decision, but over the winter, such events are infrequent. Have you got any thoughts on this? This is John Kringle, Richard Ronan and Tony Brown. Former politicians in Castletown claim the decision made by the Infrastructure Minister and the Commissioners to close Market Square to cars means traders will struggle during the winter. Perhaps if you are one of those traders, maybe you don't want to put your head above the parapet. We can understand that. However, if you often drive through Castletown, back down the back road by the old fire station and then through and past the square. Whereas once you could just nip into the square, park for 10, 15 minutes, you nip along, you buy something at any of the shops around there, and then you go. Now, it's more complicated. You have to find somewhere to park. You have to park further away, and in the rain and the wind and the dark, that maybe isn't so attractive. So, what do you think is behind the Commissioner's strategy here? Summertime, we understand. Lots and lots of events, and the square becomes a pedestrian zone with all the play equipment and what have you, the brightly coloured stuff, and it looks great. But in the winter, what do you think? John Kringle, Richard Ronan and Tony Brown.
Well, I received the letter on Saturday afternoon and was very disappointed on personal level, and I know the three of us are the same, but also very disappointed for the traders. They needed a lifeline. There was an option to give them a lifeline, but it didn't come. And I know I printed the letter out that I received from the Minister, and I took it round all the businesses that had signed the requisition notice for the meeting, and some of them knew, some of them didn't, and it was quite disheartening having to give them the bad news.
What's important now is that the residents and people around the south and across the island to come, like they always have done over the years, to come and support the traders in Castletown. Just touching on, the decision from Minister Hayward, open the square again to the car parking, certainly for the Christmas period on up until May. And then in that period, and in fairness, she said this in her correspondence, that she said that the commissioners haven't proven there's a case for shutting, but then she went on to say that she was going to shut the square to give them time to come up. Well, to me, it should be the other way around.
There's lots of people say, what's all the fuss about? Well, it's about close car parking to the actual shopping centre, and the shops and the cafes and coffee houses in Castletown will struggle because of this decision. It would have been nothing of any damage to anybody. A third of the square would still be closed off for the children to enjoy Father Christmas and the Christmas tree. And I think the point that's disappointing, as Richard said, is the Minister had fresh eyes. She wasn't tied to anything, and never mind protocols or principles or whatever from the departments. The point is, a new Minister is there for one thing, and that is when they first go in, they have the ability to say yes, but, and I think this is how we should do it. That would have at least tied them through what is an important period for them. Retailing is tough, and it's always been tough.
Well, there you are, the three former politicians from Castletown, Mr. Kringle, Mr. Rowan and Mr. Brown. Here's a note in from 762 who just says, Andy, I never go to Castletown anymore. There's no butchers, no fishmongers, no bakery, no paper shop, no newsagents. Now, we're not talking about anywhere. This is our ancient capital. This is, the old House of Keys there and everything. It's all there. So this is Castletown we're talking about, and the future of Castletown. Of course, Ballasalla is ballooning in size. And if they get some shops and what have you around there, that could take trade away from Castletown. Well, the Infrastructure Minister's response to the claims made by Mr. Kringle, Mr. Ronan and Mr. Brown, Michelle Haywood MHK, says she's giving the commissioners time to plan what they'd like to do with the square by leaving it closed during the winter. Michelle Haywood, MHK.
From my perspective, what I'm concerned about is whether we followed due process, and I checked with the officers in my department that they had indeed gone through the correct process of evaluating the request from Castletown commissioners, and I asked them to double check the Castletown commissioners that that was still what they intended to do and that was still what they wanted to happen with the square. And so really I think this is one of respecting the local government for Castletown, who are obviously democratically elected to represent the people, and it's their request, and my department's role is to just check that they've gone through the right steps and to issue the order. So that's where I sit on it. It really is for the people of Castletown to provide their evidence and to provide their comments to Castletown commissioners, because they are the ones that made this request, and it's at their behest that we've issued the order.
There she is. That's her quote. That's what she has to say. Basically, it's their job. They are elected, and again, they do have a public mandate. They are the commissioners. This is their decision. Do you shop in Castletown? If so, where do you park? If you don't live on Farrant's Way, where do you park? How do you approach shopping in Castletown? Or do you just make another decision and go elsewhere? Peter's with us now. Hello, Peter.
Oh, hello, Andy. Peter Marcos here. I listened to all that, but I didn't actually ring in on that one, and I shall digress if I start talking about it. It's about this much talked about global warming.
Yeah.
which, for the record, I think has led to some very excessive decisions, and I'm very much a sceptic. I know it's a sort of secular blasphemy to be against global warming, but there you are, that's where I am. Now, I am very heartened by the way in which your predecessor on this programme, Stu Peters, is making his views known. And I think that's very brave of him, because all too often, when you get in the Keys, where you've got people who've got a distinctive view, but which goes against the consensus, it's not easy to do that. We can talk on Mannin Line, we can talk between our friends, but when you get into the place of decisions, the number of people who are going to stand up and make their view known against the majority is going to be a brave person. So more strength to his elbow. But what I'd like to know is this. I've noticed that originally they were talking about 2050, and suddenly 2030 has come into all the conversations. And that's the bit I can't understand. It all seems as if it's been moved forward by 20 years. And maybe you know something that I don't know. Why is this?
Well, their plan is it's the climate change plan 2022 to 2027, which was the climate change plan was outlining their action that the government must take to cut emissions over the next 5 years, so that they remain on track by 2050, as you say. 2030, I think, is an aim. I think it's an ideal, if you like. So I think 2050 is still there in the background.
Well, what are they wanting to achieve by 2030? I mean, forewarned, forearmed. I know that the future's bleak with this global warming idea, and that I know it's an impossible thing to achieve. It's quite clear that it is, but why? What are they hoping to achieve by 2030?
They want, the climate change plan, regulations for a 2030 interim target supporting deliverables, which basically keep us on track to achieve net zero by 2050. So if you like, 2030 is a staging post, as you say. But the trouble is that this all seems a movable feast. It always seems like there's, it's like those, do you remember the guy who used to go on stage and have 6 plates spinning? And you'd have to keep all 6 plates spinning, and then he'd be running to the end and starting another one. The trouble is that as far as the public's concerned, Peter, I don't think it's very clear as to what the government wants and what part we play in it. Because, well, apart from the fact that we're going to pay for it.
So what are these mysterious things called deliverables? I mean, they use these words, you get these words, but I want to know, what are we delivering, or what are they, more to the point, as what I suspect it'll be, what are they taking off us?
Well, one of them is that it's home efficiency. So they're wanting us all to have far more efficient homes, and they're wanting to scale back on fossil fuel heating. So at the moment, and that's on track at some point to be banned.
Right. So what I think they haven't considered, amidst a lot of other things, well, there's one thing that the Isle of Man, as has been said on this programme very sensibly, that the Isle of Man is just a drop in the ocean. And I think the way in which this is proceeding, you'd think we were some sort of major power akin to China. But what I want to know is, why has not enough account been taken that the Isle of Man is very distinctive for this reason, that there's an awful lot of buildings, properties, houses and so on, which you don't find necessarily in the UK. I mean, and there are properties that just can't be adapted to these mysterious deliverables that they want. I happen to live in one. I mean, you can't. Well, it's been admitted that they can't use these so-called heat pumps in an older property. And if you look round Douglas, the vast majority of the properties that you can see are all old ones. So what are they going to deliver to us?
And part of that is the fact that when they put in the heat pump, one of those heating systems, the property has to be virtually airtight. So,
yeah, and this one isn't, you see. You can't... And there's another thing. As I say, I'm a complete skeptic on this, and I always applaud anybody who's brave enough to speak out against it, because all too many people just recite it, but I don't think they really believe it. You see, if you look at these older properties, you can't seal them up because of the way that they were constructed. And in any event, if you do, and even if you try, when I lived in Wales, we lived in a bungalow which was built in more modern times, and there was no chimney on it. And the effect was that it had a very harmful effect on our belongings, especially books. Started making books going rotten, you know. And we had... I know when we moved out of there, we found how the furniture had got all kinds of unpleasant things on the back, got mould and goodness knows what.
Well, at the moment, as you say, the fact is the Isle of Man is by no stretch of the imagination an industrial polluter. We have no heavy industry on the Isle of Man. The UK accounts for less than 2% of global emissions, and we're a tiny fraction of that 2%. So we're not going to save the world, even if we became net zero tomorrow. Presumably, the people who are advocating for net zero think that the world at some point will catch up and we'll have been a trailblazer for it.
I should think what we should be the trailblazer for is causing a lot of people very excessive expenditure, which they won't be able to afford. They won't be able to heat their homes, and you'll have all kinds of spin-offs from this. It's very unhealthy living in a household that's completely sealed up, you know. Yeah. Anyway, you've been ever so helpful there. You've answered a few of the questions of the mysteries, but I'm still highly suspicious about all these deliverables. I think deliverables means we're not going to be delivered with anything. We're going to have things taken off us.
Well, there's certainly one thing will get delivered, Peter, and that's the bill.
Well, we shall certainly have that one, and that's about all we get. But thanks very much for your help.
I appreciate it. Thanks for calling. 26 minutes before 1, Mannin Line.
Merry Christmas from everyone at St Mary's School in Dublin.
Merry Christmas,
Hello,
kids.
Man. At Co-op, we believe it's wrong to lower prices on things you buy least. So we lower the prices on the things you buy most, as well as giving you other exclusive member benefits. Plus, we now deliver to the whole island, so great deals can be delivered to your doorstep. So join Co-op to become not just a member, but an owner and have your say on how we're run. Co-op, owned by you, right by you. £1 membership fee applies. See full T's and C's at coop.co.uk/terms.
For a merry Manx Christmas, give a gift that keeps on giving. From days out to gifts handmade on the Isle of Man. There's something for everyone at the Manx Museum and House of Mannin Heritage Shops, where every purchase helps care for our incredible island. Also available online at manxnationalheritage.im.
Christmas, twinkling lights, a nip in the air, gatherings with friends and family, and the perfect time to enjoy a delicious glass of Bush's Manx beer. Available in all the island's finest establishments. And remember, Bush's is the only brewery supporting Manx farmers by using locally grown barley in our brews. So enjoy a Bush's this Christmas and take a taxi or bus home. Bush's, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a hoppy new beer.
Your wish is granted. Because it's panto time at the Gaiety Theatre.
Oh, no, it isn't.
Oh, yes, it is. Stage Ed presents the classic panto Dick Whittington, specially adapted for the Isle of Man this Christmas. With fun for all the family, as Dick Whittington and his Manx cat Tommy go to find out if the streets really are paved with gold in Laxey. Can Tommy help Dick become the Lord Mayor of Laxey, or will Longtail King stop him? And more importantly, will Sarah the cook ever sort out her soggy bottoms? Book Book now at villagaiety.com or call the box office on 600 555. Sponsored by Zedra Isle of Man and supported by Manx Radio.
This festive season on the nation's station, the winning continues with Manx Radio's 12 Days of Christmas.
We've got some massive prizes up for grabs, including a £100 voucher for Sorrel, a Google Nest thermostat from KPMG, and a 2-night luxury suite stay at Trail Lodge.
And lots of other goodies under the tree that could be yours.
Manx Radio's 12 Days of Christmas. Brought to you by SpectrumWindows.im.
And the winning gets underway on Friday.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Look at that time, 23 minutes before 1. And let me see, I want to get to the lines in just a few moments' time. Oh, it's Jeffrey. Hi, Jeffrey.
Hi, Andy. I hope you're getting better.
Oh, bless you. Thanks.
You know, I just want to say and agree with your last caller. What is the problem here that half the factories in the UK, more of them, some here, run on oil ovens? You know, they have these ovens to burn stuff and do all sorts and make stuff. But are we going down the road where we'll never have a boat full of diesel, where we have a plane that runs on aviation fuel? Quarter of the world is fighting at the moment. And then when that all stops, that has to be all rebuilt. And they're not going to be using battery cranes and all sorts. So what happens to the countries that produce the oil, produce the petrol? What happens to the olive oil that you use that comes from seeds? But some stuff still comes down from oil. I don't understand. We have to do something. But why is it we, on a small island like this, have to go down and put up a wind farm down the other end of the island? I don't know if you knew, but the biggest field in the UK that has all these these dishes that they put on the ground, I've got what they are now.
Yeah.
Oh, God. That's just been hit by the wind in the UK, and 3/4 of the fields have been damaged. So that's one. Solar panels. It's the biggest in the UK. It's just been hit with the wind, just gone through. Half of it, nearly 3/4, have been damaged. So that's the cost to somebody. And America, the way that's going now after January, that's going to influence Europe. It's just going to influence Europe. And I don't understand why we have to follow a trend. It's just following the trend to my way of thinking. And the bottom line of all this is that the people will suffer. It's their pockets that have to put out for all this.
So why do you think the government's doing that? And I'm bearing in mind when the general election was on a few years ago, every candidate that I spoke to, apart from one, and that was Stu Peters, were basically clothed in green. They were all talking about net zero and green issues and making everything sustainable. That was what everybody was talking about. So what's changed then?
Well, what's changed is that people are coming to realise that the cost of all this is down to the taxpayer. I mean, how can you get rid of a diesel and a petrol car and go electric? I mean, we haven't got the infrastructure here for a start. And I don't know if you've read, probably not because you've been ill, there's been so many trials done in the UK about electric cars. I mean, there's a gentleman there now who paid £47 to fill up for 25 minutes on his car. I mean, that's what he went to a station and that's what he paid for 20 minutes, £47. For a full charge, he said it was £72. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous.
So would you buy an electric vehicle?
No, never, because I have to go off the island and go all the way down south to see my stepdaughter. I have a car that can be filled up. I can go all the way down there and come back without touching any petrol tank. I have a diesel car, we had blue. On a fuel tank, it does 720 miles, and that cost me around about £90 now. So I can leave here, get Canary Walk in London, have a week down there with stepdaughter, and come back without touching anybody. And still have fuel when I'm got here. Why would I get an electric car and travel all the way down to Canary Walk and stop at least twice or 3 times and on the way back and pay maybe less, maybe £60 to get it charged? I'm not saving anything because my time factor is gone longer and longer and longer.
Okay. All right. Good to hear from you. Thanks for being with us today.
Bye-bye.
All right, good to hear from you. 19 minutes before 1. To follow up on reinforced steel bars pushing through the sand just past the Iron Pier, Ramsey Town Commissioners are looking into it as to what stage they are. It's unknown, so be aware and exercise caution when you're walking on the beach against the seawall. Apparently some reinforced steel bars are pushing up through the sand. Douglas Quayside is starting to look very sad, says Stuart. Lots of half-started projects on both sides of the quay. Douglas now resembles a worn, torn city. Douglas Corporation should voice their concerns to the planning committee. That Newsom site looked in keeping with the surrounding area. I think the problem lies with an out-of-touch, out-of-reality planning system. A saddened, demoralised Stuart. That was...
Merry Christmas from everyone at Skull Valley Geos.
From hunting the wren to cheering on the Manx tractor run, we cherish all our festive island traditions. This year, why not start a new one? Treat your loved ones to the incredible flavours of Manx food and drink. From succulent roasts to locally made biscuits and puddings, creamy cheeses and warming Manx spirits. There's something for every festive table. Visit iomfoodanddrink.com for stockists and inspiration. This Christmas, start a new tradition. Make it Manx.
Conister Bank is celebrating a remarkable milestone in 2025. 90 years of proudly serving the Isle of Man, growing alongside our island's communities. To honour this journey, Conister are telling their unique story in a book, and they want you to be part of it. If you have a story, photo, or a piece of Conister's history to share, you can help Conister bring those memories to life. Get in touch. Email marketing@conisterbank.co.im. That's marketing@conisterbank.co.im. Conister Bank, celebrating 90 years of community, heritage and connection.
On Saturday the 14th of December at 4 p.m, don't miss the Queen's Pier Christmas Carol service and Christmas lights switch on. Carols will be led by the local choir and Father Christmas will be there. Enjoy free refreshments including hot chocolate, tea or coffee and mince pies, courtesy of White Light Events. Donations are always most welcome on the night, either via our bucket collection or for more substantial donations via our card machine. This audio has been kindly sponsored by Paul Carey & Sons.
Walk through the Christmas wonderland at Ramsey Garden Centre for a magical range of trees, decorations, unique gifts and much more, including the widest range of indoor and outdoor lights. Christmas at Ramsey Garden Centre, open 7 days a week.
This festive season at Manx Radio, we're giving you the chance to win a clawsome prize. We've teamed up with IFGL to give away a £50 hamper from Tynwald Mills, tailored to your pet. To win, post a festive photo of your pet to the post which is now pinned to the top of the Manx Radio Facebook page. Whether you have a festive ferret, a Christmassy cat or a merry mouse, all pets are welcome to join in. So get posting your festive pet pictures to be a big Christmas winner with IFGL and your nation station, Manx Radio. The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
1:45 now, and after Mannin Line today, we're on Retro Kelly's Eye, David Callister and Peter Kelly at the Tower of Refuge. It's a good one after Mannin Line today. Nick's with us now. Hi, Nick.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me all right?
Loud and clear.
Perfect. I never ever thought I'd say this, but I happen to agree with Peter for the first time in 3 years, probably. And Wilf, I have a comment about what Wilf was saying. He's spot on about the recycling. I work in a recycling centre up north, and we do depollute all vehicles, and they're all petrol or diesel. We don't take electric. First of all, we're not allowed to. We're not licensed to. Second of all, it's far too dangerous. And third, it's far too costly. And until somebody gets proper facilities to remove or depollute electric vehicles, it's not going to happen anytime soon. So I don't know what we do with them. I think they probably send them back to dealers, and the dealers have to deal with them. That's from what I've heard.
Where would the license come from, Nick, then? Where would the license come from to deal with EVs on the Isle of Man?
I think it's all to do with the government, because we have to have license for everything we have through the Isle of Man government.
Right.
And there's like transportation laws and everything like that, which is actually I don't think is through the government. but is, hazardous waste transportation, things like that. So, I mean, we send off our oil and diesel and petrol, and it's all put into a container which is sealed. It's got about 10 bolts on it, and it's put on a trailer. It looks like an IBC, but it's made of steel. That's where that goes. And our batteries we send to another well-known company because we can't do lead acid or dry cell. Our wheels, tires go to recycling. Our aluminium wheels get sold. Our steel wheels get put into bales, and those get sold off. They get put onto trailers and sent off to another buyer, and that buyer sends them off probably to India, I think I recall, and they then melt them down and take all the various bits. Like you can't take the seats out, you can't take the steering wheel out, you can't take most of it. It's just the batteries, the catalytic converters, the wheels, and whatever electrics or copper you can get from them. Really, that's what we do.
Yeah, well, and interestingly, as an interested member of the public, there's obviously a few bob in this. There's an economic model to what you do, and obviously that works, and you've just delineated, what the chain is of disposal. Nobody's made that make sense to the public regarding EVs. We just don't know what happens when an EV runs out of puff and has to be got rid of.
Well, exactly, and I don't think it's come to that point yet because a lot of the EVs are still around. I mean, look at the Nissan Leafs. They've been around since at least the 2000s, I think, and I still see plenty of them around. I don't know what the owners do with the batteries, but I assume that, the batteries will last probably 5 years or more to maybe 10 years. So we're going to wait. Things are going to be catching up to us very soon when we're going to start seeing electric vehicles that are going to be conking out or not taking a charge, or they're going to have to reboot, just like an iPhone. Company's going to want, Tesla's going to want you to your car to fail, so that you got to buy another one, aren't they? I mean, otherwise they wouldn't make money.
Yeah, the thing is, it may be that you and I, or particularly me, are completely out of the loop where this thought process is going. But on the surface, I can't see it myself, Nick. I can't see how it's going to happen.
No. I mean, maybe one of our viewers or listeners, who has had an EV, more than one EV, let's say, can maybe give us an input onto what happens to it, because I've only heard horror stories about the cost, and I'm sure you have as well, that it costs something like 20 grand to replace the batteries, at least, and then the rest of the car is fine. I mean, if that were a diesel engine or a petrol engine and the rest of the car was fine, all you've got to do is replace, diesel injectors or various bits and bobs. Instead of spending 20 grand, you're spending 500 pounds. Economically, it's so much better. Okay. And I was listening to Peter as well. It was the last caller talking about driving. Now, I've been driven in the UK, and I see all these at the services. You've got the Tesla power points or whatever, power points, the charging points. But I've also seen massive diesel generators behind them. So this is the comical thing, we're using diesel to power up a electric vehicle battery charger. That's hypocrisy in its finest, isn't it? Or an oxymoron.
Well, as you say, at the least, it's just ironic, isn't it? The fact that
that's the word I'm thinking of.
We're supposed to be getting rid of fossil fuels, and you have electric charging points powered by a diesel generator.
Yeah, it's laughable. And I think it's a con. I think people are some people, very down the line, not just Elon Musk, but everybody who's cottoned on to manufacturing electric vehicles. And the ones who have, people like Volvo, I think, and a few others are going back, or Volkswagen, Volvo are going back because they're just not selling. Because there's no market for it. There's just an idea that it's a really cool idea, but it's a terrible idea, Okay. And they're not making money. It's a disaster. And I think just really quickly, going back to what Peter was saying, I have a feeling, this is my opinion obviously, but back when they had the Paris Climate Agreement, I recall that Donald Trump was the president at the time, and he refused to sign it, and everybody was up in arms, including myself. I thought, what? How can he not agree to that? Because I was all for the Greta Thunberg idea of we've got to stop. And then I opened my eyes over the past for 10 years and realized, it was a bad business decision to sign that. And I think the Isle of Man wanted to be in their gang, so to speak. Can we be best friends with the baddies? Because it's a lot better than being their enemy. Let's join the club. No matter what the economic cost to the Isle of Man, we're not going to think about that. We'll think about that later. Like right now. And now people are just thinking, this is expensive, and how the heck are we going to support it? Because like Julian's comment,
all right,
there's no base load. They never even told us about a base load. How are they going to support it without any backup?
Okay.
Anyway,
all right, Nick, terrific to hear from you. Thanks for calling today. We appreciate it.
Right.
Good to hear from you. I want to go to Tommy's with us now. Hi, Tommy.
Oh, hi, Andy. I haven't been on for a while, mate. I was going to say about he's always called it controversy, and these Stu Peters, and how he managed to con enough people to vote for him down Ramsey.
Well, you can't. It was middle. I mean, and people vote for who they want to vote for, don't they?
Well, he probably chose to do so, but there was rumours that I heard that even when he was born, his mother shoved him back in again.
Okay, all right, Tommy. Thanks for calling today, Tommy. Appreciate it.
Cheers, Andy.
All right,
cheers.
7 minutes before 1. Free parking at a premium in Castletown just isn't going to work, and I sympathise. And I'm with the shop owners about what's happening in Castletown, says Texter 304. Has anybody given a thought to less abled people who rely on being able to park close to the shops too? Once again, less able people have been left out of all government decisions, as if we don't count or we don't matter. So still, I'm canvassing opinion, by the way, and this is the story about the only public fitness and wellbeing facility on the Isle of Man. From Saturday the 4th of January, they're cutting back the weekend hours of the NSC Gym and Spa Suite. No explanation, no rationale for doing it, well, presumably to save money, but wow. Now, if you've got any thoughts on that, do get in touch. We're back tomorrow with another open line. Off to the Tower of Refuge now.
WINT. 60 years serving you as the nation station. This is Manx Radio.
Kelly's Eye, brought to you by Ellis Brown Architects.
Well, you might just detect from the sound that today we're at the water's edge, and I ask Peter Kelly the usual question: what's Kelly's Eye looking at today?
Well, if you can wait a minute till the lighthouse flashes in this direction, David, I can then see what I'm looking at, which is probably a damn good example of some Victorian castellation. It is, of course, the Tower of Refuge, and it's something which I must admit I always marvel at, primarily because of the fact that having been built as far back as it was, which I'll refer to in a moment, when you consider all the high seas and the gales and the storms that we've had, you never see anybody repairing it. It seems to stand up to it far better than the Stabbits and promenades at Guernsey and what have you. It's a remarkable piece, not only of architecture but of engineering. It stands, of course, as you know, on a rock, which just at this moment in time we can see a bit of it because the tide is either halfway in or halfway out. I'm not too sure. But of course, when we do reach full tide, the rock is completely covered, and that presented great problems back in the 1700s and early 1800s as well, with shipping coming across, because we only had the Red Pier in those days, which is half the length of the Edward Pier, where the Edward Pier stands, and so shipping coming to Douglas for the first time would see the pier and would naturally come straight across the bay, only to suddenly find themselves up on top of the rock.
On the rocks.
So William Hillary decided that something was needed there to act as a beacon. When I say beacon, not necessarily something that was lit, but something there to be a marker. And so he came up with the idea of building this little tower, which would therefore say to mariners, look, I'm obviously standing here for a reason because my feet are on the ground, please avoid me. And he first broached the subject by writing to the local paper in 1831. The tower was designed by John Welsh, who'd come to the island and had designed a number of churches and actually also designed the Smelt Memorial. And he very cleverly designed it in such a way, particularly with that round tower at the back, that it would dissipate the waves rather than building a square fort-like structure. Public subscription managed to raise most of the money, not all of it by any means, something like £181, and William Hillary totted it up by the £73 that was short of the actual cost. The rock it's on was actually called St Mary's Isle. Belonged to a Mr. Quain. Quite how he owned it, I don't know, but he subsequently handed over the title deeds to the Lifeboat Institute.
And of course, when lifeboats are mentioned on the Isle of Man, Hillary's name comes out in that connection.
It does indeed, and of course we now know it as Conister.
Many of the most iconic buildings around the island have been designed by Ellis Brown Architects. Keep up with Ellis Brown today on Facebook or via ellisbrown.in.
Part of island life for 60 years. This is your Manx Radio.